All right, y'all. So David Corenswet and Jonathan Bailey did their interview for Actors on Actors. And one comment in particular that David made kind of had the internet talking, Twitter talking at least. And so I'll just say really quick, I think that people found Jonathan's reactions to David's comment very funny because it seemed to signal that as a gay guy, Jonathan was simply not thinking about masculinity in the ways that David was, especially not on the set of Wicked playing out a scene with another queer person like Cynthia. Like, girl, let's talk about it real quick.
When we kissed, I perceived his pleasure through the magic, and I used that feeling to guide him to even more gratification. He reached through Unliksana to feed my bliss, which fed mine again. Our insatiable longing blossomed into the highest form of euphoria.
All right, y'all. So I'm going to go through this Variety article, of course. Link to the full thing will be in my description if you want to go through the entire thing. We're not doing that here. We're just going to start where Jonathan and David both kind of freak out over the fact that in both of their movies, they both have kissing scenes where they fly, where they levitate, right? And so Jonathan Bailey starts here. He said, we both kiss levitating. Of course, he's talking about Alphabet and Fierro, and then, of course, Lois and Clark, right? And so we both kiss levitating. And then David said, yes, but you have the bigger challenge. And I was like, okay. I mean, I guess. Like, okay, as the man and the sexy man, and that's not me saying that, which magazine does Sexiest Man Alive? And then Jonathan says, all of them, horse and hound. But David says, anyway, and this is the part that kind of went viral. David said, anyway, Sexiest Man Alive, you are carried by Cynthia. She's levitating you. And he says, every man out there would think there's no way you can look masculine and powerful and in control when you're being levitated by a woman. And you, in that moment when she's lifting you by your effing massive arms, maintained your masculinity. So he says, like, well done for maintaining your masculinity, because it's a lot easier when you're carrying the girl. Basically, when you're doing scenes like David has to do, where you're carrying Lois, and you can look masculine and strong and in control. And then Jonathan Bailey's like reaction, you can see here, he's like, oh, I mean, like. Just because, like, clearly he was not expecting this conversation to go in this direction. And he kind of, like, pivots really well. He says, I mean, listen, I'd be carried by both Cynthia and Ari for the rest of my life if I could be. And I was like, oh, you know, when I saw your kiss at the end of Superman, my favorite moment of the chemistry is the chuckle. And so I'm going to just stop here, right? Before we really get into anything, I think Jonathan's reaction to David saying this is so hilarious, because when David starts talking about, oh, it's such a challenge to still look masculine while you're being carried by the women, blah, 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 I think Jonathan's looking at this whole thing like, girl, I wasn't thinking nothing about that. I was not thinking nothing about that. Like, girl, I'm a gay man in tights on the set of Wicked about to play out a kissing scene with a woman who's queer, and I'm queer. Like, I promise you that masculinity is so far away from, like, what I'm considering in my world and da-da-da. I mean, that's what it seems like he's saying, you know, based on his facial expression, right? And so I think he kind of saved it a little by saying, like, look, I don't care. Essentially, he was saying, look, I don't care what y'all talking about, masculine, feminine. Like, Cynthia and Ari can carry me for the rest of my life if they wanted to. You know, it was such a good pivot away from that stuff. I just think Jonathan, I don't think that Jonathan, while preparing for this scene, you know, a gay man preparing to do the scene with a queer woman, mind you, like, oh my gosh. But yes, I don't think that Jonathan, while preparing for the scene, is like, oh my gosh, Cynthia or her character or whatever is going to be lifting me up in this scene. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my God. That's going to make me seem so weak and feminine and girly, and that's going to emasculate me. How do I compensate? Like, I don't think that Jonathan was sitting over there thinking about that stuff, girl. I mean, I think he was probably thinking like every other gay guy when they act or whatever, like, especially in hetero, like, I gotta sell it. But I mean, I doubt, especially based on his reaction to what David was saying, I doubt that he was thinking as deep about this emasculating, oh my gosh, she's emasculating me by levitating me. I don't think that he was thinking all that. I don't think that he was thinking all that. I also think that David reveals a lot when he says every man out there would think, because he said every man out there would think there's no way you can look masculine and powerful and in control when you're being carried by a woman. And I have so many things to say about just that sentence alone. First of all, I don't think every man would say that. Just period. Especially not with the way that Wonder Woman's Steve is still around. Yeah, like y'all still consider him masculine and he get carried around by her all the time. Still all the time, to the point where sometimes I'm like, girl, are you trying to narratively, are y'all using Steve to derail Wonder Woman? Like, you know what I mean? It's to the point where I'm like, dude, does every man really believe that? And then second of all, does every single scene with a man kissing a woman require for the man to look powerful and in control? I mean, Fiyero, Jonathan, whatever, he's not piloting a plane. He's not riding a dragon. He's kissing somebody. It's a kissing scene. And so David thinks it's like an automatic compliment, like it's an auto compliment to say, hey, you still look big and strong and powerful and in control when you were being carried by Cynthia, when that may not be what the scene was requiring for Jonathan to be at all. Is Fiyero supposed to be this big, strong, hulking, uber masculine guy who dominates Elphaba in this scene just because he's a man? You know, I definitely think David meant well, but to me, it just came out weird and was revealing a lot about his thought process. Because he said, oh yeah, even while, like he was essentially saying, even while she was lifting you up, you somehow miraculously, maintained your masculinity. Well done, because it's a lot easier when you're carrying the girl. And I guess it sounds weird to me because I'm like, okay, so what would it have looked like if Jonathan didn't maintain his masculinity? Like, what are the standards for that in this movie, in this scene or whatever? And also, what's the punishment for that? Like, you got to strip it back. Like, can you really sit and tell me what it would have looked like if Jonathan Bailey's gay self in these tights, what specific bar would he have had to have missed? To where it's like, okay, now the performance is too queeny, it's too feminine, you didn't maintain any kind of masculinity. And so often, straight people do this thing where it's like, oh my gosh, for a queen, for a gay guy, you really ate that. I thought the yes girls and yes mamas were going to come out right before you kissed her, but you really ate that. And it's like, it's so funny to watch them like really be gagged that gay people are performing some type of masculinity, and then having to come to, like, straight people having to come to, cis-het straight people who are obsessed with heteronormativity, like, they have to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, masculinity is a performance. And so what does that mean? I think that sometimes straight guys be so insecure about their masculinity that when gays put on a show and perform masculinity for a check, the insecure straights are like, oh, wow, okay, well, if he can perform heteronormativity or masculinity like that and make it somewhat believable, then what does that say about me? What does that say about masculinity in general? What does that say about heteronormativity? And then on top of that, I think many gays are so far removed from the thought process of maintaining masculinity or using that as some kind of like, oh yeah, I really did that. I maintained that because as a gay man, your masculinity is automatically seen as fraudulent just off the fact that you being gay, just off rip. And so like, we're so far removed. Some gays are so far removed from like this like masculinity rat race or trying to perform or out, like it's just so far from our thought process because girl, we already gay, girl. Masculinity has been canceled no matter how to straight people, no matter how much you lift, no matter how much you know what I mean, how much you can flex, how much you say. Once that sexuality comes out, your masculinity, your identity, quote unquote, as a man is canceled in their eyes. That's why, so many gays have divorced themselves from trying to live up to that expectation because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We still gonna be gay. To them, like, the masculinity is still fraudulent to them, no matter how much you try to perform it, And so saying, oh, you maintained your masculinity to someone who is likely not in a place in their life where they're where maintaining masculinity really means anything tangible besides like a performance, besides like a drag performance. That's what it all is. It's a performance like everything else. And so like Jonathan is a grown, mature man, a gay man, not worried about whether or not he passed your masculinity benchmarks. And so in a scene with Elphaba, he's probably thinking about, with Cynthia, he'd probably think about, okay, how do we sell this? Make sure my scene partner's comfortable. Make sure I say my lines right, make sure we're, you know what I mean, playing off of each other well, and sell the scene. Like, I'm sure he wasn't thinking like, oh, girl, she lifting me up and emasculating me and da-da-da-da. And so to me, it's because sometimes when you talking to some straight boys, you be like, oh, girl, here they go. And that's how David sounded to me. It's just very interesting to see, like, the kinds of things that some straight people are fixated on, to the point where, like, we're bringing it up, talking about it in movie, like playing a scene out. And you can see, based off of Jonathan's reaction, just how far away he was from thinking about that, thinking about masculinity like that, thinking about it, even thinking that it's necessary. Like, you know what I mean? It's so interesting. So let me know what you thought of this particular moment. Definitely, there were a whole lot of people on Twitter who had a lot to say. So I decided to add my 2 cents. Thank you all so much for watching. Love y'all so much. Make sure you visit Zoraxia.com. Also, check out patreon.com/AvatarAdrian. Love y'all so much. And you'll see me later.